Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word. How are you doing? This episode is a little check-in, and I want to share some reflections and some vulnerabilities after, it's now 17 episodes of running a podcast, and it's been a really, really interesting journey. And I want to just kind of say, hey, first of all, thank you to anybody that is listening to this podcast, and thank you to continue listening. It's been something that's been quite eye-opening for me. It's been a great learning experience, and I'm really enjoying this journey. And I just want to check in and not only say thank you, but also share a few reflections. I've just had a review meeting with my amazing team at Winter Audio who help to make this podcast happen. We summarised what's happened so far and, maybe what we want to change going forward, which I think is always really important to do. But before that, I want to share a few of my own reflections. And if you are considering launching a podcast, there's just a few things to consider, because it isn't just a doddle. There is a lot of thought involved. There is quite a lot of focus and work around not only creating the podcast, but also sharing it and ensuring that it's getting the reach that you want it to, and all of those sorts of things. Plus, also understanding that it's a work in progress, and, Rome wasn't built in a day. And if you're passionate about something, you keep going, and the results, whatever the results you want, they will come if you're dedicated to what you're doing. So it's just a quick check-in to do that. And if you've got any questions about launching your own podcast, or if you've got any other questions that you'd like to ask me, please do contact me at hello@helenpackham.com. But I think the first thing, when I think about the infancy of this, the seed that was planted when I wanted to create a podcast, and I did have a vision for it. So I think that having a vision for a podcast is a really good thing, because then you can create a concept and you can think of like an overarching theme. And so this helps you think of the big picture. And I did have that from the beginning with the name. Well, it was a different name, but I've changed it to Words That Change Lives. And that for me is the essence of everything I do, from the stuff that I do in the corporate world, where I help people communicate more effectively, look at their behavior, articulate themselves, become better leaders with the way that they communicate, and also in the consumer world with my TEDx coaching and my coaching of people to create signature talks and workshops and programs within the corporate world and on stages. Words That Change Lives kind of tied it all together for me. And I really wanted to do that because I do have those different facets of my business. And so keeping that big picture in mind, I think helped steer the ship quite well. And there's been some really great conversations that have come out of that. And whenever I'm thinking of guests, I always think, okay, so how does that hinge off Words That Change Lives? What's the topic that we can talk about? So some examples, I spoke to the fantastic Danusha Melina Durban about who do we give voice to in a world of cancel culture. And then I spoke to John Spencer Williams about AI versus humans. And we've got some many, many more episodes coming all around communication and how we can use our words to change lives. So it's helped me to also look forward and think, okay, well, maybe those episodes were more popular than others. So how can I refine that going forward? And how can I consistently evaluate what types of topics I'm going to be talking about? And by the way, if there is a topic you'd like me to talk about around words that change lives, around communication, articulation, public speaking, TEDx, let me know. hello@helenpackham.com, because I would love to hear what you think too. Listening back regularly has been really important, and I do this from a perspective of an audience member. So when I'm listening back to the podcast, I'm listening, how is that coming across? Because podcasting is a different beast. There's the solo stuff like I'm doing now, and then there's the conversations. And It's not the same as public speaking. It's not the same as filming a YouTube video. It's very, very different. So listening back to yourself a number of times is really helpful and also helps you improve delivery. So I think I'm getting better at doing this type of delivery that is different to the other things I do. But it also helps me to understand how the topics are coming across, how the questions are coming across, and how I can change how I am delivering. And I think with that, it's important to continue to evolve. So already after my review meeting, I'm thinking of how to do things differently. So we're increasing the number of episodes. So we've gone from 2 a month to 4 a month. And that's, really a personal preference, but also understanding that as a listener, you want to hear more often, right? You want that episode to pop into your feed more often. And I've got more to deliver. I've got so much that I want to share. And so everything still will be hinged around words that change lives, but it's just about what those topics are, more sound bites, more how-tos, and more practical strategies to give you what you need in this area. And again, if there's anything that you want to know about, please get in touch. I'm always going to be evolving this podcast. I'm always going to be looking at the stats and the data, seeing what episodes are performing, listening to feedback from listeners and evolving as I go. And I think that's a really important thing to do rather than having a fixed view. Also, finding someone to be inspired by in the podcast space has really helped me. I didn't necessarily have that before. Of course, we've got the Diary of a CEO. Of course, we got Joe Rogan, and I'm not diminishing them by any means. They are absolutely incredible. But I needed someone that I could latch onto myself in terms of a role model. And I found one in the form of Chris Williamson. He runs Modern Wisdom, and I just love the way he thinks. He thinks in a similar way to me. I love the research he does. I love the things that he brings in, and he talks about the studies, the data, the evolutionary perspective on things. I am an evolutionary geek. I do like evolution, so that's why I like him. And I listen to how he asks questions. I listen to how he uses pauses. And I think having someone that you can be inspired by in the podcast space is really, really important. Also, getting clear on what you're doing this for is really, really key. So I had quite a few people not coming at me, but communicating with me when I was launching this podcast, and I was celebrating the success of getting in the charts at number 1 and number 2 in certain charts when I was launching, which I was really excited about. With people saying, well, that's not a long-term strategy. You really need to put in the work if you want it to be a financially beneficial initiative for you. And I totally get that. But for me, I'm not working to an advertising sponsorship model. I'm not there yet. I'm still in the podcast's infancy. My goal for this podcast is to use it as a lead generating tool. So I can reach new people that I may not normally reach through my email and social media and other audiences. And also I can signpost my existing audience towards episodes so they can find out more about me, they can find out more about how I do things, and that's really paid off. So I have now signed 5 clients from the podcast, from having conversations with them saying, I listened to your podcast, I'd like to book a call, and then having that call and then signing up to my services. And for how my business works at the moment, because I do quite a lot of work within the corporate world, I'm delivering leadership programs and executive coaching and 360s and behavioral communication workshops. And around that, I book one-to-one clients for the speaker coaching, TEDx coaching, keynote coaching as well. And I've got courses and passive income and things like that. But that's how my business works. And I love that work. I love doing the one-to-one work. And so that's what works for me right now. That may change in the future as the podcast grows, as my audience continues to grow, and I can adapt my strategy and model as that happens. But that's what's working for me at the moment. So I think it's important to get really clear on what that is for you. What do you want the podcast for? And I have to reiterate this. I'm not good at everything when it comes to producing a podcast. I really had to focus on my strengths, which is in the ideas, the execution, the delivery, the conversations, the topics. And then when it comes to the technical stuff, I hand that over to the team at Windsor Audio to sort that out for me, which has been invaluable. It's been something that's enabled this podcast journey to be a joy rather than a chore. It's not a chore at all. It's really exciting. And so I'm spending all my time, all my time with the podcast, focusing on creating those ideas, having those discussions, thinking of those topics, and then the team make it happen for me in terms of getting it out, in sounding great and getting out into the world. So I think playing to your strengths and not trying to do everything, unless you like that sort of stuff, is also key. So just wanted to pop in there to say hello. Thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to listen. I really appreciate you listening. It's something that I'm really excited to continue on. As I say, we're doubling up the episodes, so you'll be getting one every week, which is exciting. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, please just get in touch. hello@helenpackham.com, and I'd love to hear your ideas. Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.